Welcome to the first ever AIP Plus episode. That's Average Intelligence Podcast Plus. If you're watching this, it means, firstly, you are awesome because you are a premium subscriber to the Acropolis News Network, and we know you joined for us.
And you rule.
You rule.
You rule the school.
It's a small school, but you rule it.
But we're not here to bore you with details.
No,
we're going to jump right in.
We're actually here to talk about something we really can't talk about.
On YouTube.
Not at all.
And you can find us on YouTube, but it's also cool if you find us here.
Yes, because you can catch all the free episodes here as well, but you only get the premium content here.
Ooh, where we can say naughty things.
Well, we can drop truth bombs.
That's what we mean. Those are naughty things according to the media.
Yes. So, we are going to be talking about
You
the
guessed
war in
it.
Ukraine. But before we get there, I have created a timeline. Thank you, Canva. Yeah, that's Canva. Isn't that sweet?
Canva's so
Canva's
good.
awesome. By the way, this premium product...
Thanks to our chief and editor.
Wait, who's that?
Our chief.
Oh, the editor-in-chief.
Editor-in-chief, sorry. I said it backwards.
And while this is a premium episode, it is also still brought to you by our proud sponsor, CV Wicks Cool Beans Candle Company. More on them later. But we're going to get right in just so we understand how we got to where we are with Ukraine. Now, Ukrainian history is really complicated and kind of fucked up, but I decided to start in 1922 when Ukraine became one of the original constituent republics of the USSR. Now, it's worth noting here that Ukraine had only become an independent nation insofar as we understand nationhood in 1917. So they weren't independent for very long.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, and then in 1930, which was actually a fallout. This is why I didn't want to get into this in depth, but just understand that Ukraine has been in a push-pull struggle between essentially Russia and what was once Lithuania/Poland, depending on what point in history you're talking about.
Yeah, northern and southern borders. They have people that are pro-Russia and then people that aren't.
Yeah, 100%. So
Still goes on today, by the way.
Yeah, but it all has its roots in these, like, just very, very old, like, going back to pre-1700s eras. But then between 1932 and 1933, we had the Holodomor, which is the man-made famine created by Soviet collectivization of agriculture, estimated 3.5 to 7 million Ukrainian deaths. Not to mention what also happened and followed throughout the rest of the USSR. Then in 1939, Poland is invaded and conquered by Germany and the USSR. A lot of people forget that fact. They always talk about the German invasion of Poland, but they forget that the USSR invaded from the other end, which is why Poland was split down the middle. Territories divided. Ukraine incorporates the eastern Galicia and Volhynia.
You better get that right.
Volhynia, yes. And if I'm it's Polish, so I don't know if I'm getting this wrong. Just let me know.
I was Polish once.
Then in 1940, we have additional territory ceded from Romania. Romania cedes Bessarabia, Northern Bukovina, and Hersta regions to the USSR. They are incorporated into the Ukrainian Soviet Socialist Republic. June 1941, Germany invades the USSR. Much of the territory becomes under the direct control of Nazi Germany until Soviet troops pushed Germany out in 1944. In 1942, the Ukrainian Insurgent Army forms inside the Organization of Ukrainian Nationalist Movement. Goal of independent Ukraine fights the USSR until the 1950s. Put that in there to show that Ukrainian independence is a big deal throughout much of the country's history. Started early and hasn't really stopped. 1945, the Ukrainian Soviet Socialist Republic becomes one of the founding nations of the United Nations. Ukraine has voting power in the UN, even though they are not independent, because they are part of the USSR. Sorry, doing a lot of talking tonight.
UN. Sorry, I was thinking about NATO.
Yeah, UN, not NATO. That comes later. Then in 1946, we have Zakarpattia. Czechoslovakia gives up claim to Zakarpattia. In a treaty with the USSR, territory is annexed into Ukraine. Now, I have a side note here. Some scholars say that during the Ukrainian independence referendum held in 1991, after the Soviet Union falls, or starts to fall, rather, Zakarpattia voters are given a separate option as to whether or not they favored autonomy for their region. Although a large majority favored autonomy, it is not granted. However, this referendum was about self-governing status, not about autonomy, like in Crimea. So it's worth noting that people in a region that was annexed by Ukraine were voted to be independent and were not granted that, even though they voted in favor of it. Just food for thought. February 1954. Remember this comes into play later. Under Khrushchev, Crimea is transferred from the Russia Soviet Socialist Republic to the Ukrainian Soviet Socialist Republic. Crimea comes into play in 2014. April 1986, we have a big jump here. Chernobyl happens. We all know about Chernobyl. What a lot of people don't realize, because everybody talks about the Soviet Union, Chernobyl was actually located in modern day Ukraine and was part of the Ukrainian Soviet Socialist Republic at the time. It's worth noting.
It's also a good movie.
1991, the USSR collapses. In 1990, 7 Soviet republics hold elections after communists lift monopoly on political power. In August, Gorbachev resigns and suspends all Communist Party activities. Also in 1991, the same day Gorbachev resigned, Ukraine passes its Declaration of Independence and calls for a referendum, 92% vote in favor of Ukrainian independence. In 1994, the United States, Russia, and Ukraine signed a statement that Ukraine will transfer all nuclear warheads to Russia and dismantle its launchers. The United States will grant security guarantees as part of the larger treaty that all 3 countries had signed. Also in 1994, Ukraine, along with Russia, that is until 2014, joined NATO's Partnership of Peace, which is a collaborative arrangement open to all non-NATO European countries and post-Soviet states. They did a lot of joint military exercises, and it's worth noting that Russia was part of this agreement, like I said, until 2014. In 1994, Leonid I believe it's Kuchma, is elected president of Ukraine. Kuchma's presidency is marked by slow growth, several economic crises, and charges of rampant corruption. He is president until 2005, however. And according to his very long Wikipedia page, he had several ties with certain people in Russia and certain dealings or alleged dealings with the Kremlin, including signing the Treaty of Friendship, Cooperation, and Partnership with Russia. Now, it's also worth noting
that didn't last long.
Oh, okay, that's not presidency. All right. Also in 1994, the Budapest Memorandum is signed by Russia, Ukraine, United Kingdom, and the United States. Following Ukraine's accession to the NPT as a non-nuclear weapons state, Russia, the UK, and the United States commit to respecting Ukraine's sovereignty, territorial integrity, and independence, and promise to not threaten or use force against Ukraine. It's in 1994. June 28th, 1996. New Ukrainian constitution is ratified. Theoretically, it requires separation of powers, but the president holds significant sway. He or she can dismiss the prime minister and rescind acts of the cabinet. The Constitution guarantees free speech and private property ownership and recognizes Ukrainian as the sole state language. Now, it's worth noting that, particularly in certain areas, there are a lot of native Russian speakers who Russian is their first language, including the sitting president, Vladimir Zelensky. His first language is, in fact, Russian.
Hold on. His first name is Vladimir?
Vladimir.
Volodymyr?
Vladimir.
So not Vladimir.
Well, it's the Ukrainian version of Vladimir.
Are they spelled the same way?
No.
Okay. I'll say that would be really wild. I mean, it's just the first name, but...
In 1997, President Kuchma meets with NATO leaders in Madrid, where they sign a document establishing a distinctive partnership between Ukraine and the Defense Alliance. Under this partnership, a NATO-Ukraine commission will meet at least twice per year to discuss the relationship. In 2000, the Gongadsky scandal. On September 16th, Yuri Gongadsky, I believe I'm pronouncing that right, a Ukrainian journalist investigating alleged corruption in the Kushma administration, disappears. His beheaded body is found 2 months later in a forest outside Kiev. Now, it says Kyiv, but I have a problem with that because I know that's how you pronounce it in Ukrainian.
Kiev.
But up until Russia invaded Ukraine, everyone in the West pronounced it Kiev. Now, I understand in Ukrainian it is pronounced Kyiv, but historically, even going back to the Vikings that settled in the area, it was the Kievan Rus. So, but I loved how after this started, everybody started saying Kyiv, which, first of all, like they fucking knew that that's how you pronounce it in Ukrainian, and like we'd always been doing it. Nobody talked about it. They gaslit everyone.
Bastards.
The scandal spurs public discontent about corruption among Ukraine's elites, leading to street protests. Western countries reconsider their support for Kushma's government. 2001, Yushchenko is ousted. The parliament passes a no-confidence motion against Prime Minister Viktor Yushchenko, who steps down. The vote is carried out by parties allied with Kushma, who had surprised observers when he nominated Yushchenko to be prime minister in 1999. Yushchenko and his deputy, Yola Tymoshenko, I think I'm pronouncing that right, had been pushing through energy sector reforms that became unpopular with many of Kushma's oligarch supporters. Then in 2004, we have the Orange Revolution, which was a series of protests and political events that took place in Ukraine from late November 2004 to January 2005, in the immediate aftermath of the runoff vote in 2004 Ukrainian presidential election, which claimed to be marred by massive corruption, voter intimidation, and electoral fraud. And Kyiv was the focal point of the movement's campaign of civil resistance.
You don't say.
Yeah, so basically they had it's long and complicated, but that's the gist of it. And I'm breezing through this because it's very, very complicated.
Well, it seems to me that they had quite a bit of problems already anyway.
Correct. That's what I'm really leaning to, but this is why
that's basically where we're getting at.
But that's why I wanted to hammer this down so you can see just through the years, history is always eye-opening. In 2006, a pricing and transit dispute between Yushchenko government and Russia's state-owned Gazprom, which is an energy company that's owned by the Russian state, cuts off the gas, resulting in a couple of days and quickly causing supply drops in European countries that import Russian gas via Ukraine. In 2008, NATO begins debate about offering membership action plans, which is basically just like a precursor to membership. Like, listen, we want you to be a member, but we're not there yet. It's kind of like a talking stage for NATO membership.
10 minutes of blah, blah, blah.
Yeah. But they debate offering member action plans to Croatia, Georgia, and Ukraine. In discussions between NATO officials and Russian President Vladimir Putin, Putin expresses opposition to extending these action plans to Georgia and Ukraine. The reason I'm pronouncing it Georgia, by the way, is so that people don't get it confused with the state. Because, holy crap, I was ignorant as shit when Russia invaded Georgia. I literally thought Russians were like rolling into Georgia, the state, for
They're
like
coming for our barbecue.
So, for those of you who aren't in the know, which if you're on here, you probably are, but just in case, unable to reach consensus, NATO members declined to offer these action plans to Georgia or Ukraine. In 2008, Russian troops invade Georgia following Georgian military operation against South Ossetian separatist stronghold, which is in Georgia. The invasion leads to a 5-day war and results in an increased Russian presence in the breakaway Georgian republics of Abkhazia and South Ossetia, or Ossetia. Yushchenko sides with Georgia, further increasing tension between Kyiv and Moscow. Russia subsequently recognizes both republics as independent states. If this sounds familiar, it should. Though neither is recognized as independent state by most countries. Does that sound familiar? It should. That was in 2008. Also in 2008, the European Union and Ukraine begin talks on a new association agreement and issue a communique that quote, Ukraine's future is in Europe. Okay. In 2010, Yanukovych is elected as president. Yanukovych narrowly defeats Timoshenko in a presidential election that most international observers view as free and fair. Yanukovych is aided by political consultants from the United States. Yanukovych recasts himself as more open to European Union integration. In 2001, President Yanukovych has former rival Timoshenko arrested for, quote, abuse of office, and Timoshenko was sentenced to 7 years in prison. International observers see the prosecution as a politically motivated way for Yanukovych to sideline his main opponent, and the U.S. ambassador calls the trial a farce. In 2013, the Ukrainian government states that it will not sign an association agreement at the upcoming EU-Ukrainian summit. In Lithuania, Yanukovych's administration announces it will resume dialogue with Russia about joining the Eurasian Customs Union. Protests begin in Kyiv almost immediately. So, let's back up a second. At this point, the sitting president of Ukraine has a political rival arrested and sentenced to 7 years in prison. In the same year, not the same year, but in the same term, begins moving away from the European Union and back towards Russia. Now, you may be asking yourself, there seems like there's a connection there. And you would be right. Moving on.
It's called corruption.
Between 2013 and 2014, Ukrainian protest Yanukovych's announcement on UE ties being severed. They turn violent after the government moves to break up protesters. Ensuing crackdowns kill more than 100 people. On February 21st, 2014, Yanukovych and opposition leaders reach a settlement that includes plans for presidential elections before the end of the year. Soon after, Yanukovych flees to Russia. In 2014, now we're getting into more recent history, pro-Russian forces seize control of Crimea. Russia annexes Crimea on March 21st through the UN General Assembly, though the UN General Assembly votes 100 to 11 against recognizing the referendum result, and Russia is expelled from the Group of 8. Putin later admits that Russian soldiers were involved in the annexation and justifies it as a way to protect ethnic Russians allegedly threatened by violence from Kyiv. Remember that. Should sound familiar. In 2014, Russia provokes an armed separatist movement to seize government buildings across eastern Ukraine's Donbass region. Ukrainian forces resist, but are wary of sparking a much wider war, with Russian troop buildups reported along the border. By early 2022, fighting has resulted in more than 14,000 deaths, a quarter of them civilians, and 2 million internally displaced Ukrainians. Part of two regions, the Donetsk and Donbass regions, which those should sound very familiar, declare themselves as independent republics. Once again, recognized by Russia, but by virtually no one else.
Did you say 2022?
Yeah.
Okay.
By 2022.
Oh, okay. Just checking.
In 2014, Hunter Biden, in April of 2014, Hunter Biden, son of then Vice President Joe Biden, joins the board of Burisma Holdings, owned by Ukrainian oligarch and former politician Mykola Zlochevsky, who was facing a money laundering investigation just after the Ukrainian Revolution. In April 2014, Biden was hired to help Burisma with corporate governance best practices. That's fucking hilarious.
Considering, no experience running an energy company, but whatever.
Well, he joined the board. He was actually working for a law firm at the time. So that it kind of makes sense, but at the same time, it's like, Hunter Biden, really best practices? Okay, in 2014, Petro Poroshenko was elected president of Ukraine. A pro-West oligarch wins an outright majority in the first round of Ukraine's presidential election. Poroshenko promises to fix the economy by aligning Ukraine with Europe and root out corruption that has trailed Ukraine since its independence. Barack Obama's administration signals interest in helping Poroshenko's battle corruption and assigns Vice President Joe Biden as chief envoy to Ukraine. Funny that.
Shouldn't have said that. Should not have said that.
In 2015, the second Minsk agreement is signed. I would have mentioned the first Minsk agreement, but nobody signed it. So that's why we jumped to the second. Putin and Poroshenko meet in Minsk and negotiate a ceasefire in eastern Ukraine. They reach an agreement shepherded by French President François Hollande and German Chancellor Angela Merkel that outlines 13 steps to end the war, including an immediate ceasefire and the withdrawal of all heavy weaponry in order to create a security zone. Fighting and shelling along the line contacts still flare up from time to time. Both sides trade accusations on violations of the deal, though international observers place more blame on Russia and Russian proxy forces. Now, I'm not saying that's untrue, but it also doesn't surprise me that the heavily, West supporting places are going to blame Russia. The problem with a lot of this a lot of this conflict is that I sincerely doubt we have extremely accurate information. 100%. And we'll get into that a little bit later. We're almost done with the history lesson, I promise. In 2015, Vladimir Zelensky becomes a star of the television series Servant of the People, where he played the role of the president of Ukraine. In the series, Zelensky's character was a high school history teacher in his 30s who won the presidential election after a viral video showed him ranting against government corruption in Ukraine. In 2017, Donald Trump approves lethal arms sales to Ukraine. In 2019, the Ecumenical Patriarch of Constantinople, the leading authority of the Orthodox Christianity, recognizes the independence of Ukrainian Orthodox Church, formally severing from the Russian Orthodox Church. Russia accuses the United States of encouraging the break in order to weaken Moscow. In 2019 also, Vladimir Zelensky wins a presidential runoff with more than 70% of the vote, defeating Poroshenko. 2 months later, Zelensky's party also wins a majority of parliamentary seats, marking the first time since independence that Ukraine's president has a majority party in parliament. Zelensky had campaigned against corruption and poverty and pledged to end the war in the East. Many saw the vote as a rejection of Poroshenko and his failure to root out corruption. In 2019, the infamous Trump-Zelensky phone call happens. Now, I happen to have, in my possession, the full transcript of that phone call. So
It was a perfect phone call.
So should I read it with or without voices?
Without.
Okay.
Just for YouTube.
Yeah, that's true. So, the call begins with President Trump. Congratulations on a great victory. We all watched from the United States, and you did a terrific job. The way you came from behind, somebody who wasn't given much of a chance, and you ended up winning easily. It's a fantastic achievement. Congratulations. That sounds so much like Trump.
Well, I mean, yeah, because no one said he would win.
That's true, yeah. They're very much kindred spirits by the end of this phone call. President Zelensky, you're absolutely right, Mr. President. We did win big, and we worked hard for this. We worked a lot, but I would like to confess to you that I had an opportunity to learn from you. We used quite a few of your skills and knowledge, and were able to use it as an example for our elections. And yes, it is true that these were unique elections. We were in a unique situation that we were able to achieve a unique success. I'm able to tell you the following. The first time you called me to congratulate me when I won my presidential election, and the second time you are now calling me when my party won the parliamentary election. I think I should run more often so that you can call me more often and we can talk over the phone more often. Trump, laughter. That's a very good idea. I think your country is very happy about that. Zelensky, well, yes, to tell you the truth, we are trying to work hard because we wanted to drain the swamp here in our country. We brought in many, many new people, not the old politicians, not the typical politicians, because we want to have a new format and a new type of government. You are a great teacher for us, and in that. Trump, well, it is very nice to hear. It is very nice of you to say that. I will say that we do a lot for Ukraine. We spend a lot of effort and a lot of time, much more than the European countries are doing, and they should be helping you more than they are. Germany does almost nothing for you. All they do is talk, and I think it's something that you should really ask them about. When I was speaking to Angela Merkel, she talks Ukraine, but she doesn't do anything. A lot of European countries are the same way, so I think it's something you want to look at. But the United States has been very good to Ukraine. I wouldn't say that it's reciprocal necessarily, because things are happening that are not good, but the United States has been very, very good to Ukraine. Zelensky, yes, you're absolutely right. Not 100%, but actually 1,000%. And I can tell you the following. I did talk to Angela Merkel, and I did meet with her. I also met and talked with Macron, and I told them that they are not doing quite as much as they need to be doing on the issues with sanctions. They are not enforcing the sanctions. He's talking about sanctions against Russia. They are not working as much as they should work for Ukraine. It turns out that even though logically the European Union should be our biggest partner, but technically the United States is a much bigger partner than the European Union. And I'm very grateful to you for that because the United States is doing quite a lot for Ukraine, much more than the European Union, especially when they are talking about sanctions against the Russian Federation. I would also like to thank you for your great support in the area of defense. We are ready to continue and cooperate for the next steps, specifically, we are almost ready to buy more javelins from the United States for defense purposes. Trump, I would like you to do us a favor, though, because our country has been through a lot, and Ukraine knows a lot about it. I would like you to find out what happened with the whole situation with Ukraine. They say CrowdStrike. I guess you have one of your wealthy people, the server. They say Ukraine has it. There are a lot of things that went on, the whole situation. I think you're surrounding yourself with some of the same people. I would like to have the Attorney General call you or your people, and I would like you to get to the bottom of it. As you saw yesterday, that whole nonsense ended with very poor performance by a man named Robert Mueller. An incompetent performance.
Oh, Bob.
But they say a lot of it started with Ukraine. Whatever you can do, it's very important that you do it if it's possible. Zelensky. Yes, it is very important for me and everything that you just mentioned earlier. For me, as a president, it is very important, and we are open to any future cooperation. We are ready to open a new page of cooperation in relations between the United States and Ukraine. For that purpose, I just recalled our ambassador from the United States, and he will be replaced by a very competent and very experienced ambassador who will work hard on making sure that our two nations are getting closer. I would also like and hope to see him having your trust and your confidence and have personal relations with you so that we can cooperate even more so. I will personally tell you that one of my assistants spoke with Mr. Giuliani just recently, and we are hoping very much that Mr. Giuliani will be able to travel to Ukraine and we will meet once he comes to Ukraine. I just want to assure you that once again, you have nobody but friends around us. I will make sure that I surround myself with the best and most experienced people. I also wanted to tell you that we are friends. We are great friends. And you, Mr. President, have friends in our country, so we can continue our strategic partnership. I also plan to surround myself with great people, and in addition to that investigation, I guarantee that as President of Ukraine, that all the investigations will be done openly and candidly. That I can assure you. Trump, good, because I heard you had a prosecutor who was very good, and he was shut down, and that's really unfair. A lot of people are talking about that, the way they shut your very good prosecutor down, and you had some very bad people involved. Mr. Giuliani is a highly respected man. He was the mayor of New York City, a great mayor, and I would like him to call you. I will ask him to call you along with the Attorney General. Rudy very much knows what's going on, and he's a very capable guy. If you could speak to him, that would be great. The former ambassador from the United States, the woman, was bad news, and the people she was dealing with in Ukraine were bad news. So I just want to let you know that. The other thing, there's a lot of talk about Biden's son, that Biden stopped the prosecution, and a lot of people want to find out about that. So whatever you can do with the Attorney General would be great. Biden went around bragging that he stopped the prosecution, so if you can look into that, it sounds horrible to me. Zelensky, I want to tell you about that prosecutor. First of all, I understand and I'm knowledgeable about the situation. Since we have one absolute majority in our parliament, the next prosecutor general will be 100% my person, my candidate, who will be approved by the parliament and will start as a new prosecutor in September. He or she will look into the situation specifically to the company that you mentioned in this issue. The issue of the investigation of the case is actually the issue, making sure to restore the honesty so that we will take care of that and we will work on the investigation of that case. On top of that, I would kindly ask that you would have any additional information that you can provide to us. It would be very helpful for the investigation and make sure that we administer justice in our country with regard to the ambassador to the United States from Ukraine. As far as I recall, her name was Ivanovich. It was great that you were the first one who told me that she was a bad ambassador, because I agree with you 100%. Her attitude towards me was far from the best, and she admired the previous president and she was on his side. She would not accept me as a new president well enough. The president, or the president being Trump, well, she's going to go through something. She's going to go through some things. I will have Mr. Giuliani give you a call, and I am also going to have the Attorney General Barr call, and we will get to the bottom of it. I'm sure you will figure it out. I heard the prosecutor was treated very badly, and he was a very fair prosecutor, so good luck with everything. Your economy is going to get better and better, I predict. You have a lot of assets. It's a great country. I have many Ukrainian friends. They're incredible people. Now, side note here. I got this transcript from CNN. They use the wrong there. Trump means they are, but they use on CNN.com THEIR. Really? The most trusted name in news, eh? Zelensky. We're almost done, I promise. Zelensky, I would like to tell you that I also have quite a few Ukrainian friends that live in the United States. Actually, last time I traveled to the United States, I stayed in New York near Central Park, and I stayed at the Trump Tower. I will talk to them, and I hope to see them again in the future. I also wanted to thank you for your invitation to visit the United States, specifically Washington, D.C. On the other hand, I also want to ensure you that we will be very serious about the case and we will work on the investigation. As to the economy, there will be much potential for our two countries, and one of the issues that is very important for Ukraine is energy independence.
You don't say.
Yeah. I believe we can be very successful in cooperating on energy independence with the United States. We are already working on cooperation. We are buying American oil, but I am very hopeful for a future meeting. We will have more time and more opportunities to discuss these opportunities and get to know each other better. I would like to thank you very much for your support. Trump. Good. Well, thank you very much, and I appreciate it. I will tell Rudy and Attorney General Barr to call. Thank you. Whenever you would like to come to the White House, feel free to call. Give us a date, and we'll work that out. I look forward to seeing you. Zelensky, thank you very much. I would be very happy to come and would be happy to meet with you personally and get to know you better. I'm looking forward to our meeting, and I would like to invite you to visit Ukraine and come to the city of Kyiv, which is a beautiful city. We have a beautiful country, which would welcome you. On the other hand, I believe that on September 1st, we will be in Poland, and we can meet in Poland, hopefully. After that, it might be a very good idea for you to travel to Ukraine. We can either take my plane and go to Ukraine, or we can take your plane, which is probably much better than mine. Trump, okay, we can work that out. I look forward to seeing you in Washington and maybe Poland, because I think we are going to be there at the same time. Zelensky, thank you very much, Mr. President. Trump, congratulations on the fantastic job you've done. The whole world was watching. I'm not sure it was so much of an upset, but congratulations. Zelensky, thank you, Mr. President. Bye-bye. Now, the reason I read through every single bit of that is because this was the phone call where Trump allegedly made a quid pro quo. Where the fuck do you see a quid pro quo in there? I see a guy who's asking somebody to look into a legitimate investigation that was allegedly kiboshed. Where's the fucking quid pro quo? This is the phone call. that the Democrats said, oh, well, he said, where?
Well, they're doing the same thing with the January 6th thing now.
Well, yeah, that's a whole separate. Where?
But, yeah. Well,
Where? This is on CNN.com. You can read it. And they have a copy. You can't see this, but you can see it, Eric. You know what that is? That's a copy of the original fucking transcript that was released by the goddamn State Department. Where the fuck?
There's no quid pro quo.
Where?
There's no quid pro.
There's no quid pro quo. Now,
unlike the one that, Joe Biden did.
well, according to Trump, Biden was bragging about how he kiboshed the investigation.
Well, no, I mean, technically, well, is that quid? Would that be considered quid pro quo? What Biden and the prosecutor had? That's not really.
I mean,
quid pro
maybe
quo.
we don't really know what they had.
Well, I mean, remember he said, "Well, if you don't fire this prosecutor, you're not
That
getting
is
money."
a
Never mind. That's quid pro quo. And he said that on live television.
Yes.
Live television. How was he not in trouble for that?
We'll get into that. We're going to finish the timeline real quick because we're in 2020 already. 2020, Ukraine is named a NATO Enhanced Opportunities Partner, an EOP.
EOP.
In June, joining Australia, Georgia, Finland, Jordan, and Sweden as countries with deeper cooperation on NATO-led missions and exercises. The alliance says that new status does not prejudge any decisions on NATO membership. Really? In September, Zelensky approves Ukraine's new national security strategy, which provides for the development of a distinctive partnership with NATO with the aim of gaining membership. The previous year, Zelensky's predecessor signed a constitutional amendment committing Ukraine to become a member of NATO and the EU. 2021. Zelensky orders a series of measures against oligarchs, notably Viktor Medvedchuk, a businessman, chairman of Ukraine's largest pro-Russia political party and close friend of Vladimir Putin's. The government freezes his financial assets for 3 years and shuts down 3 pro-Russia TV channels that guy controls, alleging that they broadcast misinformation. That should sound familiar. That May, authorities lodged treason charges against that guy, claiming that he transferred oil and gas production licenses in Crimea to Russian authorities. In 2021, Russia deploys near Ukrainian border areas and in Crimea. Biden and Putin agree to a June summit to discuss a range of contentious issues, including Ukraine. 2021, Gazprom finishes construction on the Nord Stream 2, a pipeline that is set to deliver natural gas under the Baltic Sea to Germany and could cut off a major source of income for Ukraine. Kyiv protests that Moscow will use the pipeline, which could double as gas deliveries to the rest of Europe. To the rest of Europe, as a geopolitical weapon. The Biden administration opposes the pipeline, but agrees to hold off on sanctions and reach a deal with Germany to fund alternative energy projects for Ukraine. Now, not for nothing, that does kind of sound like some bullshit.
Well, the Nord Stream pipeline was actually sabotaged.
Yeah, I know.
So,
but especially when you realize that the whole reason Ukraine opposed it in the first place is because it was just going to take money out of Ukraine.
I mean, can you really hate on them for that?
But that would be like, to put this in perspective, that would be like Canada building a gas pipeline, which they couldn't do this because we own the water that far out, but let's just assume they could. Canada building a pipeline around the United States into Mexico, and the United States being like, but we want that oil money. It's the same thing. In late 2021, early 2022, the Putin government demands a set of security guarantees from the United States and NATO. This includes a draft treaty calling for tight restrictions on U.S. and NATO political and military activities, notably a ban on NATO expansion eastward. The Biden administration delivers written responses in January, rejects Russia's insistence that Ukraine never be accepted in NATO, and proposes new parameters for security in the region. Only 2 more things, I promise. In 2022, Russia invades Ukraine. And notably, in 2023, so this year, in January, Vladimir Zelensky fired at least 9 top officials as his government battles claims of bribery and officials splurging on lavish lifestyles during the war. 4 deputy ministers and 5 regional governors were fired by Ukraine's cabinet. So, now that you have an idea of what a giant clusterfuck politics are in Ukraine, we can kind of dive into this whole giant cluster. So, essentially, after reading all that, I'm kind of thinking to myself, why the fuck are we involved?
After knowing the history of everything that we just heard, why are we involved?
Well, because what it essentially comes down to is, I want to
Sounds like just another corrupt country.
Well, now I want to say one thing here. I honestly believe that Zelensky is not, especially by your Ukrainian standards, I don't believe Zelensky is very corrupt. I think he is definitely pro-West.
Doesn't mean he's not corruptible, though.
Well, and it also doesn't mean...
if you're given money.
Well, here's the thing. He earned a lot of respect when I heard that he fired all those people who were caught being corrupt. And I will give credit where credit's due. I think Zelensky has shown a lot of very good leadership qualities, considering it's not like he asked Russia to invade his country, and he very easily could have left.
Considering what he said recently, though.
Well, okay, so
he lost a lot of support.
Yeah, there's that. But here's the thing, and this is what I would like to know. Now, I haven't heard him speak out about this. I don't know. Here's the thing, though. Zelensky speaks English, so I don't know if that was a totally accurate translation. I don't know.
Okay. I can see that, but the thing is, though, if news sources are going to post that...
Oh, because they never make mistakes.
Well, I'm not saying they don't make mistakes. I'm just saying you would assume that they're going to be double-checking the translation and just being 100% sure that that's exactly what he said.
Well, but I'm also looking at it this way. Like, it's all a matter of perspective. Like, I don't think Zelensky is perfect. But I think in terms of world leadership, I think he's pretty high up on the list, at least what I've seen so far. And again, never met the guy, never been to Ukraine, don't speak Ukrainian. Never been to Russia either, don't speak Russian. I see a guy whose country got invaded and he stayed.
I mean, kind of had nowhere else to go.
Oh, that's not true. He could have gone to Poland.
Yeah, but he looked like the biggest coward ever.
Oh, that's what I'm saying. Yeah, but I mean, he still stayed.
Captain goes down with the ship, baby.
Well, I mean, there have been like the Shah of Iran, for example, fled to the United States when his country had an insurrection. So it happens. The Kaiser, Kaiser Wilhelm II, after he abdicated his throne in Germany towards the end of World War I, just went to the Netherlands and stayed there. So political leaders fleeing countries that are in duress is not really a new thing.
Right.
It's also not a very uncommon thing. However, so credit where credit's due there, but like you showed me that clip and I was like, oh, fuck, no. And then another thing I didn't care for was the fact that we were holding up the Ukrainian flag in the United States Congress. I kind of thought that was a nice little kick in the dick. No. And I want to say it was Croatia, but they showed footage of Croatian lawmakers. They were doing the same shit. I want to say it was Croatia. If it wasn't Croatia, I apologize. But it was another Eastern European country, and they had people there that they were holding up the Ukrainian flag, and they took it. They took it from them. They were like, "No, this isn't gonna fly in our house." Like, you can support Ukraine, but like, it's sad. I heard somebody say this, like, there's more fucking Ukrainian flags in my neighborhood than American flags. And it's like, a lot of you motherfuckers didn't even know where Ukraine was until this happened, and they started putting it on CNN.
Yeah. And then now that's all over their Facebook profiles. And
yeah, the Ukrainian flag. Like, listen.
You don't give a shit.
You don't give a flying fuck. Well, I said that about Syria when all that was going down. I was like, motherfucker, you didn't even know Syria existed.
That's why I stayed in my lane. I was like, I have no idea anything about these countries. I said, unfortunately, it's affecting them, but fortunately it's not affecting me. So.
Well, and it's worthwhile mentioning this, talking about Syria. When all that was going down, it was actually on NPR, so I was surprised. They interviewed somebody that lived in, I forget, I think it was the capital. I can't remember the name of the city, but it was a place where the Assad regime still had control. And they were interviewing a woman.
Was it an older woman?
No, she was younger.
Okay.
She was in college.
Okay.
And they were asking her about it, and she said, you know what? Like, say what you will about this, but I'm allowed to go to school. I don't have to wear a hijab if I don't want to under the Assad regime. Because as we remember, in Syria, who were the insurgents? ISIS. And who funded indirectly, or maybe directly, who funded them and gave them weapons? The United States. So we're presuming, like, is Assad a good guy? I don't fucking know. Never met the motherfucker. Probably not.
You can't say someone's good or bad without meeting them.
Well, I don't know about that.
Okay, I'm sorry.
I was gonna say,
granted of what they've done.
Tread lightly there, because I mean.
No, I meant to say from what they've done, not meeting them or talking.
Well, I don't know. There are people that still think Mao Zedong and Joseph Stalin were great people. So.
Yeah, and they're also idiots.
Yeah, that's true. I don't see how you can.
Anyone who agrees with anything related to Marxism or anything.
Kanye West thinks Hitler was a stand-up guy, so.
I think everyone took him out of context.
Kanye or Hitler?
Dude, get out of here. Fucking.
This is about to take a turn.
You know, the funny thing is, we've talked about this on our regular podcast before, but like I watched, it wasn't a documentary or anything like that, and I don't take it anything seriously. Actually, I think we got in trouble for this when I was talking about this. There was a Hitler piece, and they were saying if you knew what the Jews were up to, you would want to exterminate the Jews. I'm like, what the fuck, dude? I was like, that's crazy.
No, that was a comment that was linked in one of our Rumble videos.
What? Oh, I haven't read it. But
I told that guy he could fuck right off because he commented a link.
And I'm not saying it's true or untrue, you know, but I was just saying it's, you know, it's always, I hate to say it in terms of this, but it's fun to look up conspiracies.
Yeah, it is. Well, and speaking of Hitler, it's worth noting, like, Hitler was a terrible fucking, like...
I mean, how many people did he kill?
Well, it's hard to say, but
an
estimated 6 million Jews alone.
Yeah. And then, I mean, he didn't just kill Jews either.
Mm-mm.
You know, people think he just killed Jews. And
it's hard to quantify. No, he killed several Romani, the mentally handicapped.
It's funny. They say
Poles.
that he was, you know, wanted blonde hair and blue-eyed people, but yet he was a brown-haired, brown-eyed kid.
Well, he was also Austrian, not German, technically.
Fucking.
Now that gets into a whole thing that I'm not going to get into here.
He lives on the moon. He lives in the hollow Earth core.
Well, that gets into the whole thing. Is like, but aren't Austrians German? Well, technically, yes, but technically not. It's a thing. German history is extremely complicated.
Schwarzenegger will tell you.
Well, Schwarzenegger's Austrian too.
I know. That's why I said that.
But yeah, so this whole Ukraine thing, it's funny because when it first started, I was very much in the like, Ukraine, da-da-da-da-da. But as it's gone on, and I understand it to a point because...
You were definitely really somewhat pro.
Well, because I am very pro-sovereignty, and what I want to be crystal clear, what Russia did was wrong.
I second-guessed it from the start. I was like, this is weird.
Oh, I knew it was weird. I questioned why, and I still maintain to this day, if Donald Trump was president of the United States, that wouldn't have happened. Would not have happened.
And you don't have to like him. You don't have to anything. It's like, it's just facts.
Well, and Xi Jinping wouldn't be flexing his muscles against Taiwan either if Trump was still president. Holy, I would bet my life on that. Might end up betting my life on that. Well, because here's the thing. Now the word nuclear has been thrown around a couple of times. Now, I know a lot of people are freaking out. My personal take on that is...
No one wants to do it.
No, because here's the thing. If Putin wanted to do it, he would have done it by now. Because they have him. Now, here's my other conspiracy theory. So you remember... Well, you don't remember because we weren't alive, but back in the Reagan administration, the whole Star Wars project, everybody thinks I'm nuts, but here's my thing. I think that they did it. And I think we have it. And I think that...
You think we have a ray gun?
Not a literal
death.
I think we have a way to stop a nuclear warhead from reaching the United States. I truly believe that.
I'd hope so.
I mean, by now. And what's funny is everybody was making fun of Reagan for that. And I'm like, no, that's a pretty good fucking idea.
Lasers from space, man.
Dude, and here's the other thing. Everybody was making fun of Trump with the Space Force thing. I was all fucking for it. Still am.
I don't get why they were making fun of advancements.
Hello. Newsflash, dipshits. If you own outer space, you're it. That's a, Russia can be like, we're going to shoot a missile, and we're like up in space, and we're like, that's fucking cute. We're going to Death Star your ass.
Listen, we're already in space.
I mean, we technically own it. The moon's ours. We put a flag on it.
The funny thing is, a lot of people state that obviously we didn't go to the moon, and you know why they said they filmed it. So China and we were racing Russia.
Russia at the time.
Well, okay, yeah, we were racing. Well, China was in the race too, weren't they?
Not in the 1950s,
No?
and 60s,
Okay.
no.
Well, anyway, so they said that they filmed it, and the reason they filmed it at that time was because Russia was very close to getting there.
There's actually a really interesting tidbit. So if you're a fan of manga,
Obviously, I don't believe that. I'm just saying.
no, if you're a fan of manga, specifically Astro Boy, in the manga series, there's a chapter where they go to the moon, and keep in mind this is in the 1960s. They actually have, I believe it's a Russian, or I should say a Soviet flag on there, and cosmonaut debris on the moon, because at the time, Russia, because remember, Russia was the first ones to put somebody in orbit in space.
Yep.
So at the time, it really did seem like Russia was going to win the space race. And so at the time, a Japanese artist was just making a safe assumption. Turns out, we choose to go to the moon, not because it is easy, but because it is hard. It is not made of cheese. We believe it is made of rock and roll.
A lot of people think the moon is hollow because what's his face? Who was it? It wasn't Buzz Aldrin. I think it was
Neil Armstrong?
Neil Armstrong. He said when they landed on the moon, it rang like a bell. Bing.
Well, I'm going to call bullshit on that, considering to have sound waves, you have to have an atmosphere and air.
The moon has an atmosphere. It's very small. Very, very minute.
I hadn't heard that.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
But don't take my word for anything on the moon.
And there's actually oxygen in the dust.
Is there, though?
Mm-hmm. Yep, look it up.
You can't trust me when it comes to the moon, because I'm the one who embarrassed myself on an early episode of the podcast when I'm like, yeah, but there's no dark side of the moon. And
see,
somebody corrected me
you
in the
love
comments.
history, like when it comes to like planets
Like
and
Earth
that
history.
Stuff. I love that.
No, but it was so funny because they're like, there is a dark side of the moon. I'm like, no, there's not. And then I looked at it, I'm like, oh my God, there is a literal dark side of the moon. I did not know that. I thought that it rotated independently, but it turns out.
Well, another thing.
I mean, it does rotate, but it's always where it is in relation to
the Earth and the moon rotate the exact same
right. So we're
pace,
always
so they always
we're
see
always
the same side
seeing
of
the
each
same
other.
side. I did not fucking know that.
So if you are on the moon, you will always see the same side of Earth.
No, you won't.
Yep, rotates it the same.
That's not possible.
I'm just kidding.
Don't fuck with my brain like that.
The Earth is much bigger, guys. So the Earth actually rotates, but the way the moon rotates, yeah. Which, in not retrospect, but in hindsight, that kind of doesn't make any sense, really, if you think about it that way.
I know. That's why I said there wasn't a dark side of the moon.
I understand your.
You understand my flawed logic.
I understand your flawed logic, but. Yeah.
You watch though in time.
Well, it's because of the orbits.
Yeah,
also
I know.
As well.
It's one of those things where it's like I don't understand how it works, but I know it works, and I'm not going to ask any questions. But yeah, so but one of my biggest problems with this whole Ukraine thing is how much fucking money we're sending, and the fact that Biden just
We're just printing it up. But it's not that we're sending money. We're printing money to send.
And listen, I understand.
Kills our fucking value.
Well, I understand where Zelensky is coming from his perspective, because at the end of the day, he just wants his country to exist.
But where the fuck's the other European countries?
Yeah, fucking pay up, bitches.
I mean, what about UN, NATO, all of them? Like, come on, guys, cough it up.
Well, and not only that, I think this is truly Russia's just last ditch, and I forget his name. He was on Joe Rogan, and he was talking about how essentially the Russian government understands that they're eventually going to die. Not literally die, but I mean like they're going to peter out as a civilization. So they're essentially choosing to go out
with a bang.
Yeah. Well, they're trying
okay.
to go out with their because I mean if you look at it like the military performance of the and it's worth noting too that Putin recently authorized the use of the recently authorized people who had been convicted of crimes to now enter the military, excluding people who have committed sex crimes, particularly those against children. But that wasn't the case before, and there's conscription happening. Where's it going with that? Oh, so I think this is Russia's like last gasp, so to speak, and that's why the nuclear option is particularly scary because at the end of the day, if they get to a point
where they have no other,
why the fuck not? You know. Now, do I think they want to do that? No, I don't. I think that's the bargaining chip, which the problem with how the entire world is handling the Ukraine situation is the fact that they are not giving Russia an out. And I know that sounds bad. I know that sounds really bad.
I think your guy's right. What you're talking about, because the thing is, with all the mining in Ukraine, if Russia was able to get a hold of that, they would be able to sustain their economy better, which makes zero sense because the ruble is doing. I don't know if it still is doing well, but it was far. It was performing better than any other currency at the time.
I suspect that was artificial.
You think so?
Yeah, because I mean,
well, there was a lot of citizens talking about it online, and that they were going to grocery stores and showing how much it costs for bread, and the equivalency to America was like quite a bit. It was like $3 for a loaf here, and it was like $1 there.
Yeah, that you can have those types of things, but longevity of a currency isn't necessarily the same thing. But the problem, I think, is that virtually no one is trying to, at least not that I'm aware of. And again, they have a lot of information. This is why I'm always hesitant to talk about things like international or even international conflicts because everybody involved has information that we don't have. So we are strictly talking about what we are aware of, which is such a small side of the picture. And I kind of understand where Neville Chamberlain was coming from now, because I always gave Neville Chamberlain shit for letting Hitler get away with annexing part of Czechoslovakia. Which, I mean, benefit of 80 years of hindsight. But I kind of get it now, because I think ultimately, the ultimate goal should be to stop the fighting. Now, how do we do that? If nuclear arms weren't a thing, the easiest way to stop the fighting is to give Ukraine direct help and get Russia out of Ukraine. It's that damn nuclear part that is problematic. So I think ultimately we're going to have to offer Russia a way out of this. Now, I don't know what that looks like.
Money.
Well, no, I don't think money, because I think you're right. I think they want...
No, I'm not talking specifically just dollars. I'm talking
that's what I'm saying.
Something that's going to keep them afloat.
Yeah, 100%. Now...
help their economy.
I am not saying this should happen, but I'm just... I think where we should start is okay, maybe, just maybe, because as we now know from our history lesson, Ukraine is no stranger to having its geography change. Now, usually that's in the form of it annexing territory.
Okay, I see where you're going.
But maybe, just maybe, we, as the United Nations, do your job, come up with a way where we can maybe have a legit referendum in the Donbass region. And Ukraine's taken over Crimea again, I believe, right?
I believe so.
I believe they've taken Crimea over. Maybe Crimea becomes part of that equation too, where you have a legitimate referendum that is conducted by the United Nations, and you have Ukraine and Russia sign a treaty that says that they will honor whatever the referendum has, and you don't let either one of them count the votes.
Listen, you want to know how to end it? Do exactly what you said. Have that treaty. a peace treaty, and then have talks with Russia and bring them in.
Bring them in. What do you mean?
UN.
They're already in the UN.
No, I'm sorry. What was it? Is
NATO?
it NATO? Is it NATO? Because I believe it was Putin who was basically saying he was pretty much pissed off because they were considering Ukraine when Russia had been asking, and he was like, "Why wouldn't you want Russia on?"
Well, no, that's not exactly. So here's what we have.
I'm botching it. I'm highly botching it.
Here's what you have to understand about NATO. So NATO was founded. The whole purpose of NATO was to stop Soviet expansion eastward or westward into Europe.
Oh, it's not Soviet anymore, though.
That's kind of what Putin was saying. Now, you have to always take something Putin's saying with a grain of salt because it might sound factual, and indeed, I kind of see his point. It's like if the Soviet
Keep your
Union,
enemies closer.
if the Soviet Union doesn't exist anymore, why is NATO still around? Well, we know why NATO is still around, really, but it's a rhetorical question.
Something for us to send our tax money to.
Pretty much.
Oh, that was your phone.
Yeah, that was my phone.
I was like,
Where was I going with that? Oh, so yeah, I think, and to be fair, I think Biden is wholly incapable of.
he's not going to get anything done.
Like, and this is such a shame. Now, I think Zelensky could potentially. Now, I can see why Zelensky wouldn't be for that because then he'd be the guy who annexed gave territory to Russia potentially.
I'm just surprised they haven't had a meeting.
I think they did prior, but frankly, if I'm Zelensky, I'm not going anywhere other than somewhere in Ukraine. Like, I'm on neutral ground.
You'd be killed.
That fucking Putin is former KGB. Fuck that shit. Like, have a Zoom meeting.
That's what I'm saying, dude. Like, people are fucking around with Putin. I'm like, dudes.
No, I would not. I would
not to be fucked with. That's what I'm saying. Everybody's all, oh, fuck, oh. I'm like, dude, like,
no.
You want to keep him at bay.
Now, here's the interesting thing about Putin. I would love to have the opportunity to sit down and talk to him. I think that would be fucking fascinating. I think it'd be scarier than shit.
I don't think so. I know he's intimidating, but I'm just saying, like, if you ever see him talk with people, like, when he was talking with Trump, dude was all smiles.
That's true.
Bouncing around, just like a normal person.
You know what? At the end of the day, I think Putin at least respected Trump.
Yeah.
I think he's like, I could take him in fight.
But and then Trump came out and he's just like, hey.
Actually,
son of a bitch.
A lot of people forget that Trump was an athlete in college.
Athlete.
And it shows, though, because he has very much that bravado. And the other thing about Trump that's interesting is you forget how old he is.
Yeah, like, people are trying to talk shit on him about eating McDonald's and, like, whatnot. It's like, dude's old.
Amazing.
He's old, and, he's had the dude wasn't really, like, super overweight his entire life until, recently, like, 10, 15 years ago?
Yeah. And he's almost 80.
So, I'm sorry, but after you get to a certain age, you stop fucking caring.
And meanwhile, you have Joe Biden that can't stand up on a stationary bike.
Oh, he's skinny, but he can't stay up on a bike.
Because he's fucking dying.
We're
watching a man die in real time.
It's sad.
It's like the decomposition has already started.
Like, just speaking of his ears, how one earlobe used to be attached or detached, and now it's not. That's weird. It's weird.
Now, you might
Does no one ever fucking point that out? That is so weird.
Here's the thing you might know. I meant to look this up, and I completely forgot to, but I saw a video clip of Biden talking about him having brain surgery at one time. Was that a joke, or has he actually undergone brain surgery?
He has had brain surgery.
Well,
it was not like extensive brain surgery.
I
believe he had a clot removed.
Well, there you go. That answers the how. So let me get this straight. We elected a man.
That doesn't change an earlobe, though.
Well, potentially could. We elected a man who had brain surgery, and we're not questioning the soundness of his mind.
Hello. What's his face?
That's me. Sorry.
Oh, I was like, what the fuck is that? Anyway, who's the guy who is essentially brain dead, and his family left the States, and he was just elected. Fetterman, yeah. I mean, look at Fetterman.
That's fucked up.
Dude is literally
he's in a
brain dead. No, he's brain dead. He's brain dead.
Like legit?
He's legit brain dead.
Oh,
Well, I mean, sources are saying. I'm sorry, I can't confirm that. But the thing is, no one has heard from him. His family, his wife, and his kid left the country. Why would they leave the country?
Because they don't want to be prosecuted.
What would they be prosecuted for, though?
Murder?
What, you think they did it at the Fetterman?
No. Oh, I keep forgetting. We're on YouTube. Yeah, they fucking killed him. No, but they did exploit somebody who wasn't mentally sound.
Well, his wife? That's what I'm saying. His wife and
his
child, that makes zero sense. Like,
but you know what?
Why would they be in any trouble?
You know what is not exploitation, though?
Tell me, Jake, what is not exploitation?
Getting your candle needs met by Stevie Wicks School Bean Candle Company. Every one of these candles is hand poured right here in the United States. By hand.
Jeez,
I already said that.
That blows my mind how fast you smell those. And not even lit.
Salted cranberry. Frosted cranberry, not salted cranberry.
Mm.
And every candle, I don't know if you can see it because it's one of the white ones, but see that little heart in the middle? That is a scent boosting tart. So right when you light the candle, you get a burst of scent. That's really hard to see.
It is really hard to see.
It's because it's a white one.
Well, it's also because we have a shitty camera.
Yeah.
One day.
You're going to talk about my shitty camera? Anyway, if you go to StevieWicks.com, you can get all of your, it's the best candle you ever have, truly. And they are a proud sponsor of the podcast, even the premium content. And every month there's a major holiday, you can get themed candles. You can also subscribe, you can subscribe and get a monthly candle box where you get your candle and candle-related items delivered to your house and a free gift every month that is a surprise. If you're a subscriber, you also get a special candle on your birthday. Not on your birthday proper, but in your birthday month.
Yeah.
It'll come in your box. It'll be special. And
Just for you.
you know what? I wasn't going to do this, but I am going to do it. If you use the promo code AIP when you check out, you get 10% off your order. Or if you use promo code AIP20, you get 20% off your first monthly subscription box when you sign up. So check them out. I'm telling you right now, you can see it in all of our videos. You lift that up and...
It may take a few seconds, but it literally smells like a candle is lit.
Yeah. Some scents are a little bit faster than others, but they're all pretty fast. Personally, I like the blueberry muffin because if you want to really fuck with people and make them think that you're baking, get that one. You don't even have to light the thing.
It's you, McMuffin.
But anyway, that's StevieWicks.com, StevieWix.com, and use those promo codes and get your candles today. And if you've got a girlfriend or a wife or whatever,
Whatever.
it makes a great gift. Just saying. It's not quite as good of a gift as what have we spent in Ukraine now? Like $100 billion, something like that?
400
$400
million was given just recently, and then 400 billion?
That sounds right. It's something 100 billion.
Something like that.
Which I love. I love how all the Democrats were bitching and moaning, complaining about the money spent in Iraq.
Or how about Trump taking his golf outings, and then saying how much it costs the American taxpayers, but they're A-okay with sending
They're
hundreds
A-okay
of
with
billions
this.
of dollars to, or how much? Yeah, hundreds of billions of dollars to Ukraine when we have zero, like what?
You know what I think it is?
The public has nothing to go on.
You know what I think it is? I think it's racism. Truly, because this money's going to white people. They don't give a fuck. When it was going to brown people, they gave a fuck.
Damn. Racist pigs. Just kidding.
Bastards.
Bastards. Goddamn shitty wall.
That's what Ukraine needs. They need a shitty wall.
Ukraine needs what Israel has.
The Iron Dome.
That thing is amazing.
Phenomenal.
Because people, when they hear it, they're like, "Oh, it's just a dome." It's like, no, you idiot! It's a fucking defense system, and it's amazing.
You know what? I forget who I was talking to, but they said, "Yeah, but it's not 100% effective." I'm like, it's like 90% effective.
And it's, dude.
Have you
seen it work?
Yeah. Do you realize how incredible that is? We're talking a system that can identify a rocket and shoot it the fuck down 90% of the time.
And
that's fucking amazing.
Israel has anyone who turns 18, they have to spend 2 years in the military.
Yep.
It is a requirement for everybody, and I don't necessarily agree with it, but at the same time, I'm like, there's a lot of people that need structure, and that helps them, gain structure, and then just get on, and then they just start being a productive member of society.
I think that's a really good example
I
of
need to
like,
stop staring over here.
yeah, I think that's a really good example of something that works for Israel, just considering where they are geographically and what they need, and the fact
Exactly,
that they're surrounded
exactly.
by enemies. But at the same time, my whole thing with stuff like that is I honestly think that if there's not a choice in it, then it doesn't mean nearly as much, if it means anything at all.
Yeah.
But at the same time, since the country has existed, it has been,
Drenched in war.
yeah, but they've kicked some fucking ass.
Because they are fucking. What's the
The
word
first-
I'm looking for?
The first war the country fought, they were invaded, and they ended up getting territory out of it. Now, granted, they would cede this territory back later on, which is something that many people forget. I recently watched Ben Shapiro's episode of Debunked, where he was talking about the Israeli-Palestinian, negotiations over the years. And yeah, I'm very pro-Israel in that regard. Because every time they've come to the table, they've been willing to make concessions in the name of peace. And I think that attitude is what's needed in the Ukrainian conflict.
That attitude is what's needed around the world.
100%.
Like, I don't understand why people just can't get along. Like, I can disagree with you at the end of the day, but it's a new day tomorrow, and guess what?
But I'm also not trying to tear down your shitty wall.
I could be your friend.
Goddamn Hungarians!
We don't have to agree.
No.
We just have to eat chicken and rice.
And shitty beef.
And barbecue.
Hello, shitty barbecue.
Oh, and Qdoba. Qdoba's
Yeah,
the shit.
Qdoba's the bomb, yo.
Oh, so what do you think? I think, or what do you?
Well,
what do you want to do?
we didn't solve the Ukrainian crisis, but hopefully we've enlightened you a smidge. So basically,
Smell.
stop.
You Americans have such large penis.
You know what? Honestly, I would like to see. I would like to
Love
see.
South Park.
I would like to see some, or maybe we do something where because there's two areas in the Donbass region. Maybe or actually, my ideal scenario would be to see those two become see Donbass become kind of a buffer state between Russia and Ukraine, and you can have mining contracts for both countries.
And they can all make money.
And Russia can, I do not agree. I want to be crystal clear. I do not agree with what they're doing, but I do understand maybe why they're doing it. And if we can solve that problem without war,
Makes sense.
then why would we not do it? I think you just need to come to the table.
There's something deeper going on here, and then nobody's talking about it.
Well, I mean, and here's the thing: Russia does, as a people, as a government, Russia does, honest to God, believe that that Ukraine is essentially part of Russia. Maybe not literally, but certainly like spiritually and ethnically to a certain extent, and that's kind of true. Like going way, way back, but what you have to understand is Ukraine was a constant pull between, at one point, the Duchy of Lithuania and the Russian Empire, and then at a certain point, or I think it was the Duchy of Poland, actually, then Lithuania, or what was once Lithuania, and the Duchy of Poland, and the Russian Empire all were, at one point or another, essentially fighting over Ukraine. And at one point, the Cossacks, I think Cossacks, literally just said, fuck it, moved all to southern Ukraine, and were like, this is our space, fuck y'all. We will fight all of you. And they think they fought for all three at one point or another. So Ukraine has a rich history of just being like, you know what, fuck all you motherfuckers. We want to be, we are Ukraine.
Hey, gotta hand it to Ukraine right now, though. I mean,
They whooping some ass.
They've kept Russia at bay.
They whooping some ass.
But I feel like Russia hasn't like 100% fully tried though.
They kind of have though.
You
like,
think so?
well, Putin just had to authorize people with criminal backgrounds to be put in the army.
That's true. That's true.
I was legitimately surprised because when I heard Russia invaded, I was like, oh well, Ukraine. It was nice knowing you.
And then it just kept going for weeks and weeks, and I was like, what the fuck's going on over there? Like, why is like we're not seeing?
Why haven't they
anything?
won yet?
Yeah, like what the hell's going on?
Well, but now I suspect that something similar would happen if China invaded Taiwan. Now, ultimately, I think that if they were left alone, Taiwan would get a ton of aid from the West. But if they were left alone, I think the mainland would ultimately win. But I think Taiwan would put up a fucking fight.
You know, this kind of ties in a little bit with Ukraine, but in America, you've got these libs, I'll just say liberals, who want us to give up our guns, but yet they're okay with sending hundreds of billions of dollars of guns to Ukraine for them to fight against tyranny. You can't make this shit up.
And they don't understand that they sound like fucking idiots when they say shit like that.
And I'm just like, you guys don't make it.
Why do you
No one should have guns except the police and the government. I'm like, okay, so then what happens when they come to knock down your door and take everything from you?
Why do you need an AR-15 when Russia invades? That's why. Haven't you ever seen fucking Red Dawn?
Well, even an AR-15 is not enough. It's just
It's
one trigger,
better
one
than
pull.
nothing.
No, I agree, but I'm saying it's one trigger, one pull. Everyone's so afraid of one trigger, one pull. I'm like, dude, you'd have to be like the best fingerer in the world.
Well, I don't know. I mean, a semi-automatic, you can still fire off a
Well,
lot.
I mean, if you're good with
But
it,
compared
you
to
can you can have certain types of triggers.
But compared to a machine gun, no.
Yeah, exactly.
It's not. Yeah.
Bitches.
Fuck it, bitches.
Hoes and bitches.
Bitches and hoes. You know what? I think we just need to get a couple of hookers to go over there and solve that problem.
just go fuck Putin and be like, listen, eat a Snickers.
You need to relax.
And then put Zelensky in another boy band.
Better? Better.
Bitter.
Better.
Where's my bird? I've won for my bird.
I really would like that. I'd like to talk to both of them.
I'd like to sit them both down, dude. Seriously, a fucking debate between the both of them. Be like, why are you both retarded?
Oh, I don't think either one's retarded. In fact, I think Putin is scarily intelligent, but I don't think he has.
I think he's more intelligent than Zelensky. I'll be honest.
I'm not saying
Zelensky's not smart.
I think more intelligent, yes, but I think Zelensky has that.
He's got common sense.
Well, it's not just that. I think Zelensky has the honest idealism that I think he really did and does want to root out corruption in Ukraine. But I think he may be in a little, or at least he was in a little bit over his head. I don't think he understood, which we don't understand in this country, how far the corruption goes. I think a lot of people end up getting elected to Congress, for example, particularly the House of Representatives, but all throughout Congress, they get elected thinking they're going to change, and then you realize, I was listening to Ben Shapiro talking to, DeSantis, and DeSantis was talking about when he was in Congress, when he was a representative, and he was like, I realized very quickly that in order to get to a point where you can actually make change in Congress, you have to play the game. But if you play the game too long, then you lose what brought you there in the first place. He said, so I just elected to do what I thought was right and kind of bide my time. And that was before he ran for governor, which we all know how that turned out.
Smart man.
Smart man. I mean, I was very impressed. I haven't finished that yet, but I'm very impressed by DeSantis every time he speaks, because he speaks in a way where he doesn't come off like, don't get me wrong, he's a smart guy. He went to Yale and Harvard Law. Like, he's not stupid. And it was funny because Ben pointed out, it was like, we might be the only two alumni on stage that Harvard Law is not proud of.
But just because Harvard decided to go woke.
Well, yeah, Yale's not exactly a bastion of conservative ideals. But
I don't think there are very many colleges that are.
Not many, no.
It's like, listen, Ben Shapiro, all of you guys, you've got the money. You know what you should do?
Give it to us.
Well, open up your own colleges.
That's much harder to do than you think. But Jordan Peterson is.
I'm not saying you can't. I'm not saying it's not gonna be hard. I'm saying that would be the number one thing to do. That's the thing about this country, like
Jordan Peterson's doing that actually.
Well, and perfect fucking example to do.
Well, and here's the fucked up. No, it's not fucked up. It's great. They're actually getting accreditation. Like it's not Hustlers University. It's an actual college. It's an online college, but it's a college. I'm thinking about joining. It seems very fascinating. Well, and his goal, it's such a noble goal too, because he said that his goal is to be able to give somebody, at least academically, the college experience for what it should cost for an online school. They're trying to keep tuition. I think he said they're trying to keep it under. I thought he said they're trying to keep it under $1,200 a semester.
Wow.
Or a year. Maybe he said a year. I can't. Don't quote me on that. I'm not sure. But it's like that's drastic. Because fuck, Ivy Tech is $2,000 a semester, and that's dirt fucking cheap.
Yeah.
That's without any financial aid whatsoever. By the way, that's out of pocket for an average semester, which I believe is 4 classes. That may have changed, but that's what it was when I was there, which wasn't that long ago. But
my financial backing fell through, so I didn't go.
Which I'm a big fan of places like Ivy Tech. Like I think community colleges and the like.
Don't ever.
They don't get
down on fucking. Yeah, exactly. Don't ever down on community college.
Well, I've told my nephews said listen. Now my older nephew is a bit of a different story because he plays football and wrestles and he's very good. So I told him, I said, listen, if you can get a full ride scholarship to a 4-year, do it. Absolutely do it. But if you're not athletically gifted or academically gifted, there's nothing wrong with going to a community college your first 2 years. Then you can transfer into a state school if you want to do that. There's absolutely nothing wrong with it because they don't give a shit where you went before. They care where you got your diploma from. And you can transfer in and you can still get your diploma from wherever the fuck you transfer into. And then if you're going to graduate school, nobody gives a fuck about your undergrad anyway. So, them's the dirty little secrets.
You know who doesn't give a fuck?
Zelensky?
Just kidding.
I think he does give a fuck. Though.
I think he does. And I think Putin gives a fuck. But the thing is, we don't know what they give fucks about.
Well, and that's the problem, is Putin is often cast in an overly negative light because he's Russian, and Russians are all evil.
Russians are fucking nuts, man.
They are. They really are.
Did you see that video of this guy was like fucking, they were training, fighting, and there was a bear in the background? I'm just like, oh, they're Russian. Holy shit.
That's like a quintessential Russian. Well, speaking of Russia, this has nothing to do with Russia, but you'll be proud. I finally watched Creed.
I've never seen it.
Oh, I thought you told me to watch it. Oh, it's good.
I heard that movie's amazing. I heard all the movies are amazing.
I started watching Creed 2, but it was so late. And I stopped it, but
I just rewatched all the Spider-Man Homecoming,
Far
From Home.
I know how you watched it. Never mind. I need to because they're so
they're
good.
So good.
They are. They're really good.
But I was so confused when the first movie, Homecoming, to the blip after the blip, because No Way Home was after the blip. And
correct.
He was talking about
Far From Home was after the blip.
Yeah, my bad. Far From Home. But I was so confused because he was talking about MJ and then liking her, and then I guess that had to have transpired in one of the Marvel movies. Because at the end,
happened in Homecoming.
No, he never told MJ.
No.
He liked that girl. He liked the other girl.
Right. No. And Far From Home, that's when he
ended up liking her. But the thing is, he hadn't told her, and I was like, oh, when did this fucking relationship bloom?
They hinted at it in
I know.
Homecoming.
Well, I mean, obviously her name's MJ.
Yeah, but it's not Mary Jane.
Mary Jane.
Wow, yeah. But it is funny because I watched the first time I watched Far From Home was actually in Mexico.
Oh yeah,
that was
funny.
funny.
Saying that. Vaya con Dios.
No, it was actually funny because my girlfriend at the time, we were there with her cousins, and we were trying to figure out what to watch, and he goes, Spiderman.
Spiderman.
But because in Spanish,
Peter Tingle.
Apparently, I don't know this, but apparently the joke's funnier in Spanish. The Peter Tingle thing. I don't believe that, but I was told it was funnier in Spanish.
I thought it was fun.
Oh no, I thought it was hilarious in English, but apparently in Spanish it was funnier. But I've also had somebody tell me that Shrek is 10 times funnier in Spanish, but I don't know if I agree with that either. But I'm not a fluent Spanish speaker, so I couldn't tell you.
Can you imagine who was it? Charlie, not Charlie, Chris Farley was on point to
Play
voice
Shrek.
Shrek, and then he died.
Yep.
And they had like half of the movie filmed, and it was a completely different movie.
Yeah. Well, and then even when they got Mike Myers, he went through and re-recorded most of the audio again because he decided a Scottish accent was better.
And honestly, it killed it.
It is. It is.
It made it.
Well, we're devolving, and I really have to pee. So do we
All
want
right.
to wrap this up, or do we want to continue after a potty break?
No, let's wrap it up because we're at the hour and a half mark anyway.
Excellent, because I really have to pee. Anyway.
I'm tired.
Yeah, very.
And he keeps shitting his face.
My face?
Yes.
Thank you for enjoying the first ever episode of AIP Plus.
Apes together strong.
Booga booga.
And it's not APE.
No, AIP. As you'll see in the title, say AIP Plus.
Yes, sir. And this will be live within a day or two. So
But you won't know that
You
because
won't
by the
even know
time you
that.
watch this, it'll already be on there.
so I didn't even have to mention that.
No, didn't have to at all.
But I wanted
we did
to.
because we love you guys and gals.
So yes.
I don't have to go through the regular outro
And if you see this,
because you'll never see this anywhere but here on the Acropolis News Network.
tell your friends. Share the website.
Do that.
Do
I was gonna say something else and then it
the
disappeared.
cha-cha.
I actually can cha. I'm actually pretty good at cha-cha.
All right. Well, guys, thanks for checking us out, and definitely subscribe to the Acropolis News Network because if
Hey.
you're here watching this, you are
You
subscribed.
already are. But tell your friends too so that they can enjoy this content as well.
Absolutely. All right, guys.
Peace out. I'm gonna go pee.
Later.